The rusted control panel splits open with a metallic shriek, and Tommy Brennan's flashlight beam cuts through 27 years of darkness. What he finds wedged behind the wiring makes his blood freeze. A child's baseball card, perfectly preserved. With a name that stopped the search parties cold in 1983, the morning sun beats down mercilessly on the Riverside County Fairgrounds as Tommy Brennan wipes sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of grease across his weathered skin. At 52, he's been fixing carnival rides longer than he cares to remember, but the old tilt-a-whirl has been giving him trouble all week. The control panel keeps shorting out, and with the fair opening in 3 hours, he's running out of time. "Come on, you piece of junk," he mutters, wrestling with the corroded housing that hasn't been properly serviced since the Reagan administration. The ride creaks and groans in the California heat, its faded paint telling stories of countless summers and thousands of screaming children. Tommy's been working the carnival circuit for 15 years now, ever since his construction company went belly up during the recession. He's seen every kind of ride malfunction imaginable, but something about this particular tilt-a-whirl makes his skin crawl. Maybe it's the way the empty cars seem to watch him as he works, or the fact that the previous mechanic quit mid-season without explanation, muttering something about bad vibes and wrong energy. The control panel housing finally gives way with a sharp crack, and Tommy's flashlight reveals a mess of ancient wiring, mouse droppings, and rust. But as he reaches deeper into the cavity, his fingers brush against something that doesn't belong, something smooth and rectangular, wedged tight behind a bundle of cables. What the hell? Tommy frowns, working the object free with careful fingers. It's a baseball card, protected by a clear plastic sleeve, somehow pristine despite being trapped in this mechanical tomb for decades. The card features a young pitcher, in a Detroit Tigers uniform, mid-wind-up, frozen in eternal motion. But it's not the player that makes Tommy's heart skip. It's the name written in careful blue ink across the bottom margin, Billy Morrison, age 8. Tommy's hands begin to shake. Every carnival worker knows the story, whispered around campfires and told in hushed tones during late-night setup. Billy Morrison, the boy who vanished at the Riverside County Fair on August 15, 1983. One moment he was there, clutching his mother's hand and begging for one more ride on the tilt-a-whirl. The next moment, he was gone. The search lasted for weeks. The FBI got involved. Every ride was dismantled piece by piece. Every carny was questioned, polygraphed, investigated until their entire lives were spread out like anatomy lessons. They found nothing. No trace, no clue, no sign that 8-year-old Billy Morrison had ever existed beyond the desperate pleas of his parents and the collective nightmare of a community that couldn't protect its own. Tommy stares at the card, his mind racing. The plastic sleeve is old but intact, the kind collectors used in the 80s. The ink hasn't faded. Most disturbing of all, the card looks like it was placed there deliberately, not dropped or lost in some accident. His phone buzzes, a text from his supervisor. ETA on the tilt-a-whirl? Governor's doing a photo op at noon. Tommy's thumb hovers over the keyboard. He should call the police immediately. He should preserve the scene. He should do a dozen things that his rational mind is screaming at him to do. But something deeper, some instinct carved by years of working society's margins, tells him to be careful. Very careful. Instead, he takes photos of the card from every angle, documents exactly where he found it, then slips it into his shirt pocket. The wiring repair can wait. He needs to understand what he stumbled into before he involves the authorities. Because Tommy Brennan has learned one thing during his years on the carnival circuit. When you find something that's been hidden for 27 years, there's usually a damn good reason it stayed hidden. He begins to reassemble the control panel, his movements mechanical while his mind churns. The card feels like it's burning against his chest, a radioactive reminder that some secrets refuse to stay buried. As he works, he can't shake the feeling that he's being watched, not by the empty ride cars or the early arriving fairgoers, but by something else entirely, something that's been waiting a very long time for Billy Morrison's baseball card to see daylight again. The control panel clicks shut with a sound like a coffin closing, and Tommy steps back to survey his work. In 3 hours, this ride will be spinning again, filled with laughing children and oblivious parents. But now he knows the truth that lies beneath the cheerful facade. A truth that connects him to a mystery that destroyed lives and shattered a community's innocence. His phone buzzes again. This time it's a call from an unknown number. Tommy stares at the screen, watching it ring. In his pocket, Billy Morrison's baseball card seems to pulse with malevolent energy. After 27 years of silence, something has awakened. And somehow, Tommy Brennan has become the key to unlocking a door that was never meant to be opened. The phone continues to ring, each tone echoing across the empty fairgrounds like a funeral bell. Tommy's finger hovers over the answer button, knowing that whatever comes next will change everything. But some calls, he's beginning to realize, you can't ignore forever. That Tommy's thumb slides across the answer button before he can stop himself. The voice that emerges from the speaker is barely a whisper, crackling with age and something that might be fear. "You found it, didn't you?" The words hit Tommy like a physical blow. He spins around, scanning the empty fairgrounds for anyone who might be watching him. The morning sun suddenly feels cold against his skin. "Who is this?" Tommy's voice comes out rougher than he intends, the baseball card seeming to burn against his chest. The card. Billy's card. "I've been waiting 27 years for someone to find it." The voice wavers, like an old recording played on dying equipment. "My name is Frank Kozlov. I was the ride operator that day. The day Billy disappeared." Tommy's legs nearly give out. Frank Kozlov, the name that dominated headlines for months in 1983. The man who ran the Tilt-A-Whirl during Billy Morrison's last ride. The man who claimed he never saw the boy after helping him into car number 7. The man who passed 3 polygraph tests and was eventually cleared by the FBI, but never cleared by public opinion. Jesus Christ, Tommy breathes. Frank Kozlov is supposed to be dead. A bitter laugh crackles through the phone. Dead to the world, maybe. Dead to everyone who mattered. But not dead enough to forget what really happened that day. The voice grows stronger, more urgent. "Listen to me carefully, Tommy Brennan. You're in danger now. The moment you touched that card, you became part of something bigger than you can imagine." "How do you know my name?" Tommy's eyes dart around the fairgrounds again. A few early vendors are setting up their booths, but none of them seem to be paying attention to him. "I know a lot of things. I know you've been working the circuit for 15 years. I know your construction company went bankrupt in 2008. I know you live alone in a trailer park in Riverside and send half your paycheck to your ex-wife in Phoenix." Frank's voice drops to barely above a whisper. "And I know that whoever killed Billy Morrison has been watching that ride ever since, waiting for someone exactly like you to come along." The baseball card feels like it's made of lead now, dragging Tommy's pocket down toward the earth. "You're saying Billy was murdered?" "I'm saying Billy Morrison never left that fairground alive." "But what happened to him?" Frank's voice breaks, dissolves into a coughing fit that sounds like it's tearing him apart from the inside. When he speaks again, the words come out in a rush. "What happened to him was just the beginning. There were others, Tommy. Before Billy and after Billy. The Tilt-A-Whirl was never the ride. It was the hunting ground." Tommy's world tilts sideways. The cheerful chaos of the carnival around him. The bright colors, the upbeat music starting to blare from various attractions, the excited voices of families arriving early, suddenly feels like an elaborate mask covering something unspeakably dark. "That's impossible," he says, but even as the words leave his mouth, he's remembering the previous mechanic's sudden departure. The way the man's hands had shaken when he handed over the tools. The way he'd kept looking over his shoulder, as if something was following him. "Is it?" Frank's voice carries the weight of decades. "Did you ever wonder why this particular ride has gone through so many mechanics? Why the turnover rate is 3 times higher than any other attraction? Why the company keeps it running even, though it barely breaks even?" Tommy hasn't wondered about any of those things, but now that Frank mentions them, the patterns seem obvious. Glaring. How had he not noticed? "The card was my insurance policy," Frank continues. "Proof that I knew. More than I was telling. Proof that someone else was pulling the strings. I hid it there because I knew eventually someone would find it. Someone who wasn't part of the inner circle." "What inner circle?" Tommy's voice cracks like a teenager's. "The people who run things, Tommy. The people who decide which stories get told and which secrets stay buried. The people who made sure the investigation went nowhere. The people who..." The line goes dead. Tommy stares at his phone, watching the call timer freeze at 3 minutes and 47 seconds. He immediately tries calling back, but the number doesn't connect. When he checks his call log, The unknown number has vanished entirely, as if the conversation never happened. But Tommy's shirt pocket still holds the baseball card, and his memory still echoes with Frank Kozlov's desperate warnings. Around him, the county fair continues its transformation from empty lot to family entertainment destination. Children's laughter begins to mix with carnival music. The smell of funnel cake and cotton candy starts to drift on the morning breeze, and somewhere in that wholesome chaos, if Frank is telling the truth, a predator is watching, waiting, planning. Tommy pulls out the baseball card and studies it again. In the strengthening sunlight, Billy Morrison grins up at him from the plastic sleeve, frozen in time at age 8, his whole life ahead of him. Except his life had ended here, in this very spot, 27 years ago. The card's corners are perfect, unfrayed. The ink is still vibrant. This isn't just a piece of evidence, it's a message, a breadcrumb left by someone who knew the truth, but couldn't speak it. Tommy's phone buzzes with another text from his supervisor. Need that ride operational ASAP. News crew arriving at 11 for pre-coverage. News crew. Tommy's blood runs cold as he realizes what that means. If there's really some conspiracy surrounding this ride, if Frank Kozlov is telling the truth about an inner circle, then the last thing Tommy should do is draw attention to himself. But it's too late. He's already part of the story now, whether he wants to be or not. That he pockets the card and heads toward the maintenance shed, his mind racing through possibilities. He needs to research Frank Kozlov, find out if the man is really alive and how he got Tommy's number. He needs to look into the ride's history, trace its ownership, map the pattern of disappearances that Frank hinted at. But first, he needs to get through the next few hours without anyone noticing that he's found something that could unravel 27 years of carefully constructed lies. Behind him, the tilt-a-whirl creaks in the morning breeze, its empty cars swaying like hanged men. And somewhere in the growing crowd, Tommy can feel eyes watching him. Patient, calculating eyes that have been waiting a very long time for this moment. The game, whatever it is, has finally begun again. The Riverside Public Library smells like old paper and broken dreams. Tommy hunches over a microfilm machine in the corner, scrolling through newspaper archives from August 1983. His hands shake slightly as he manipulates the controls. Billy Morrison's baseball card a constant weight in his pocket. The headlines blur past. Massive search continues for missing boy. FBI joins hunt for Billy Morrison. Carnival worker cleared in disappearance. Each article brings back fragments of memory. Tommy was 25 then, working construction in Sacramento, but even he remembers the story dominating the news cycle. What he doesn't remember, what the papers didn't report, are the details that emerge as he digs deeper. The inconsistencies in witness statements. The fact that 3 other children had gone missing at county fairs across California in the previous 2 years. The way the investigation seemed to lose steam after the first month, despite the Morrison family's increasingly desperate pleas. Excuse me, are you researching the Morrison case? Tommy's head snaps up. A woman in her 30s stands beside his table, clutching a manila folder against her chest like armor. She has the hollow-eyed look of someone who hasn't slept properly in years, and her blonde hair shows premature streaks of gray. Maybe, Tommy says carefully. Depends who's asking. Sarah Hendricks. I'm a freelance journalist. She gestures toward an empty chair. Mind if I sit? I've been working on the Morrison story for the past 5 years. Tommy studies her face, looking for signs of deception. Frank's warnings echo in his mind. Trust no one. Everyone could be part of the conspiracy. But Sarah's eyes hold something that feels genuine. The haunted determination of someone who's seen too much truth. Why? Billy Morrison? Tommy asks as she settles into the chair. Sarah opens her folder, revealing a collection of newspaper clippings, police reports, and handwritten notes. Because Billy wasn't the first, and he sure as hell wasn't the last. She slides a photocopied document across the table. This is from the Kern County Sheriff's Department. A boy named David Chun, age 7, disappeared from the Bakersfield County Fair in July 1981. Same circumstances. One moment he was there, next moment gone. Tommy scans the document, his blood growing colder with each line. The parallels are unmistakable. A crowded fair, a child who vanished without a trace, an investigation that went nowhere. And this, Sarah continues, producing another document. is from Fresno County. Miguel Santos, age 9, disappeared from their county fair in September 1984, 13 months after Billy. Jesus, Tommy breathes. They're all connected to county fairs, not just county fairs, the same carnival company. Morrison Brothers Entertainment. Sarah's voice drops to a whisper. They've been operating in California for over 40 years, and everywhere they go, children disappear. Tommy feels the world tilt beneath him. Morrison Brothers. He's seen their logo on equipment throughout the fairgrounds. They're not just any carnival company. They're the carnival company, the one that's provided rides and attractions for the Riverside County Fair since the 1970s. Have you gone to the police with this? He asked. Sarah's laugh is bitter. Oh, I've tried. 3 years ago, I approached the FBI with everything I had. Know what they told me? Insufficient evidence. Coincidence. No proof of criminal activity. She leans forward, her eyes intense. But I kept digging, and I found something they missed. She pulls out a photograph, grainy, black and white, clearly taken from a distance. It shows a group of men standing near a carnival trailer, their faces partially obscured by shadows. But one face is clear enough to recognize, a younger version of Frank Kozlov. This was taken in 1982, 1 year before Billy disappeared. That's Frank Kozlov on the left, but look at the man next to him. Tommy squints at the photo. The second man is older, heavy-set, with a distinctive scar running along his jaw. He's wearing a Morrison Brothers Entertainment jacket. Raymond Morrison, Sarah says, one of the company's founders. He died in a car accident in 1995, but before he died, he made some interesting financial arrangements. She produces a bank statement, heavily redacted but still readable in key sections. Every year since 1983, on the anniversary of Billy's disappearance, someone has been depositing exactly $10,000 into a trust account. The beneficiary is listed as F. Kozlov. Tommy's mind reels. Frank's been getting paid to keep quiet. That's what I thought too, until I found this. Sarah slides across one final document, a handwritten letter, photocopied and barely legible. Frank Kozlov wrote this to his sister in 1989. She gave it to me after she saw my article in the Sacramento Bee. Tommy reads the shaky handwriting. Dear Marie, I can't take it anymore. What we did to that boy, what they made us do, it's killing me from the inside. The money doesn't help. Nothing helps. But I can't tell the truth because they'll kill. Me too. Just like they killed the others who tried to talk. I put something away, something safe, proof of what really happened. If anything happens to me, it's hidden where Billy took his last ride. Find it and make them pay. Your brother, Frank. The letter is dated 6 months before Frank Kozlov supposedly died in a house fire. Sarah, Tommy says slowly, Frank Kozlov isn't dead. She stares at him. What are you talking about? I have the death certificate. I visited his grave. Tommy pulls out his phone, shows her the call log, or where the call log should be. The screen shows no record of any recent calls. He called me this morning, told me I was in danger, told me about an inner circle. Sarah's face goes pale. That's impossible. Frank Kozlov died in 1989. I've seen the police reports, the fire department records. There was nothing left of him but dental records. Then who the hell called me? Tommy's voice rises, drawing stares from other library patrons. He lowers it to a hiss. Someone who knew my name, my history, my phone number. Someone who knew I'd found something. Sarah stares at him for a long moment, then begins shuffling her papers back into the folder. We need to get out of here. Now. What? Because if Frank Kozlov is really alive, and if he's been hiding for 27 years, then whoever's been paying him to stay quiet just learned that their secret is blown. She stands up, clutching the folder. And if you really found what he hid in that ride. Tommy doesn't need her to finish the sentence. Around them, the library continues its quiet afternoon routine. Students studying, seniors reading newspapers, children giggling over picture books. Normal life, proceeding normally, while underneath it all, something dark and patient begins to stir. He pockets Billy Morrison's baseball card and follows Sarah toward the exit, both of them trying to look casual while their hearts hammer against their ribs. Behind them, Tommy swears he can feel eyes watching from the shadows between the stacks. The automatic doors slide open with a soft hiss, and they step into the afternoon sunshine. The world looks the same as it did an hour ago, but everything has changed. They're no longer just researchers investigating a cold case. They're witnesses to a conspiracy that's been 27 years in the making. And somewhere in Riverside County, people who've killed to protect their secret are about to discover that their past has finally caught up with them. Sarah's Honda Civic feels like a coffin as they sit in the library parking lot, windows cracked to let in the stifling afternoon air. Tommy keeps checking the mirrors while Sarah spreads her research across the dashboard, her hands trembling slightly as she arranges the documents. "We need to be smart about this," she says, pulling out a burner phone. "If they've been monitoring you since this morning, your regular phone is compromised. Use this from now on." Tommy takes the device, noting how prepared she seems. "How long have you been planning for something like this?" "Ever since I started getting followed 3 months ago." Sarah's voice is matter of fact, but her eyes betray the fear underneath. Black SUV, tinted windows, always keeping just far enough back to seem coincidental. "They want me to know they're watching." Through the windshield, Tommy spots a black Escalade parked across the street, its occupants invisible behind dark glass. His stomach clenches. "Like that one." Sarah follows his gaze and swears under her breath. "That's them. We need to move, but not obviously. Act normal." She starts the engine with deliberate casualness. "There's someone I need you to meet. Someone who's been waiting 27 years to tell his story." They pull out of the parking lot at exactly the speed limit, Sarah's eyes flicking between the road and her mirrors. The Escalade doesn't follow immediately, but Tommy spots it 3 blocks later, maintaining a careful distance. "Who are we going to see?" Tommy asks. "Billy, Morrison's older brother, Marcus. He was 12 when Billy disappeared, and he saw something that night. Something the police buried in their reports." Sarah turns onto a residential street lined with modest ranch houses. He's never stopped looking for answers. The Morrison house sits at the end of a cul-de-sac, its yard overgrown and windows covered with heavy curtains. A rusted swing set in the backyard stands like a monument to childhood interrupted. Sarah parks in the driveway, and they approach the front door together. Marcus Morrison answers on the first knock, as if he's been watching from behind the curtains. At 39, he carries the weight of nearly 3 decades of grief in his shoulders. His eyes, the same bright blue that stared out from Billy's missing person photos, immediately lock onto Tommy. "You're the mechanic," he says. "It's not a question. How did you?" "Sarah called me after you left the library. Said you found something." Marcus steps aside to let them enter. After all these years, someone finally found what Frank promised. He'd hidden. The living room is a shrine to Billy Morrison. School photos cover the mantelpiece. His baseball trophies fill a display case, and his bedroom, visible through an open door, has been preserved exactly as he left it in 1983. The air carries the musty scent of a museum, of time stopped at the moment when everything went wrong. "Show him," Marcus says to Tommy. With shaking hands, Tommy produces the baseball card. Marcus takes it reverently, his eyes filling with tears. "I gave him this," Marcus whispers. "The morning of the fair. He'd been saving his allowance for weeks to buy a pack of cards, and this was the only one he wanted to keep. Said Milt Wilcox was going to win the Cy Young Award." His voice breaks. Billy always believed in the underdogs. Sarah sits on the edge of the couch, her recorder app ready. "Marcus, tell Tommy what you saw that night." Marcus sets the card carefully on the coffee table, then walks to the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. "The fair closed at 10, but Billy and I snuck back around midnight. We'd done it before. There was a hole in the fence near the livestock barn. Billy wanted to see if he could spot any workers sleeping in the trailers." Tommy leans forward. "Did you see anyone?" "Oh, we saw people all right, but they weren't sleeping." Marcus's voice drops to barely above a whisper. "There was a trailer behind the tilt-a-whirl, bigger than the others, with no windows. We heard voices inside, so we crept closer. The house feels like it's holding its breath." Outside, a car door slams. "Go on," Sarah urges. The door was cracked open just enough for us to see inside. There were maybe 6 or 7 men sitting around a table, playing poker. But that's not what made us run. Marcus turns from the window, his face pale. There were photos spread across that table. Photos of children, hundreds of them. Tommy's blood turns to ice. "What kind of photos?" "All kinds. School pictures, family portraits, candid shots taken from a distance. Some of the kids I recognized from around town. Others looked like they might be from different places. Marcus's hands clench into fists. And in the center of the table, like it was some kind of trophy, was a stack of Polaroids. Polaroids of what? Tommy asks, though he's not sure he wants to know. Marcus meets his eyes. Of kids who weren't in those photos anymore. The silence stretches taut between them. Sarah's recorder captures every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of horror as the full scope of what they're dealing with becomes clear. We ran, Marcus continues. But Billy tripped about 50 yards from the trailer. He fell hard, scraped his knee pretty bad. While I was helping him up, one of the men came out to investigate the noise. Did he see you? He saw Billy. Made eye contact for maybe 3 seconds. Marcus shudders. The next morning, Billy couldn't stop talking about that man's eyes. Said they looked like shark eyes, black and hungry. Through the window, Tommy spots the black Escalade creeping down the street. His mouth goes dry. Marcus, Sarah says gently, did you tell the police about the trailer? Of course I did. The next day, after Billy disappeared, I told them everything. They went to check, but the trailer was gone. Vanished overnight, along with most of the Morrison brothers' crew. Marcus's voice turns bitter. The detective in charge, a guy named Sullivan, told my parents I was traumatized, making things up to cope with losing my brother. Tommy stands up abruptly. We need to leave. Now. What? Marcus asks. Because we're being watched, and I don't think they're here to protect us. Tommy pockets the baseball card. Is there a back way out of here? Marcus nods toward the kitchen. Through the backyard, over the fence into the Hendersons' property. They're in Florida for the month. Sarah grabs her files while Marcus disappears. Into Billy's bedroom, returning with a small metal box. These are copies of everything I've collected over the years. Police reports they said didn't exist, witness statements that were lost, even some financial records I obtained through unofficial channels. The sound of car doors slamming echoes from the front of the house. Time to go, Sarah hisses. They slip through the kitchen and out the back door, moving quickly but quietly across the overgrown lawn. Behind them, Tommy hears the front door open and unfamiliar voices enter the house. Heavy footsteps. The sound of furniture being moved. They're over the fence and into the neighboring yard when the screaming starts. Marcus stops dead, his face twisting with anguish. They're destroying everything. Billy's room, his photos, everything. We can't help him by getting caught, Sarah says, pulling Marcus toward the street. We need to get this information to someone who can actually do something about it. But as they reach Sarah's car, parked 3 blocks away, Tommy realizes they have a bigger problem. The Escalade isn't the only vehicle following them anymore. A white van has joined the surveillance, and as they drive toward the highway, a motorcycle with a lone rider falls in behind them. They're not just watching anymore, Tommy says, checking the mirrors. They're hurting us. Sarah's knuckles are white on the steering wheel. Hurting us where? Before Tommy can answer, his burner phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number, Riverside County Fairgrounds. Maintenance shed behind the tilt-a-whirl. Come alone, or more people die. The message is followed by a photo that makes Tommy's blood freeze. Frank Kozlov, very much alive, tied to a chair in what looks like a concrete basement. His face is bruised, his eyes wide with terror, and he's holding up a piece of paper with today's date written in shaky handwriting. The trap is closing around them, and Tommy realizes that finding Billy Morrison's baseball card wasn't the end of the mystery. It was just the beginning of a game they never had a chance of winning. The Riverside County Fairgrounds looked different in the dying light of evening. What seemed cheerful and innocent this morning now feels predatory, every shadow hiding potential threats. Tommy crouches behind a row of game booths, watching the maintenance shed through night vision binoculars Sarah procured from her car's emergency kit. I count 3 guards, he whispers into his burner phone. Sarah and Marcus are positioned 2 blocks away, ready to call the FBI the moment Tommy confirms Frank is really inside the shed. 2 by the main entrance, 1 patrol making rounds every 10 minutes. This is insane. Sarah's voice crackles through the tiny speaker. We should wait for the authorities. The authorities have been covering this up for 27 years, Tommy replies. Besides, they said more people die if I don't come alone. What he doesn't tell Sarah is that he's not planning to go in alone. Not exactly. 30 minutes earlier, after they'd lost their surveillance tail in the maze of downtown Riverside, Tommy had made a decision that would either save Frank Kozlov or get them all killed. He'd called Detective Ray Castellanos of the Riverside PD, the one cop in town who'd been asking uncomfortable questions about cold cases lately. Castellanos had listened to Tommy's story with the kind of skeptical silence that cops reserve for conspiracy theorists and frequent flyers. But when Tommy mentioned Detective Sullivan's name, the line had gone quiet for a long time. Sullivan retired in 1995, Castellanos had finally said, right after the Morrison brothers' entertainment investigation was officially closed. Bought himself a nice house in Palm Springs with his pension. Funny thing about that pension, it was a lot bigger than it should have been for a small-town detective. Now Castellanos is somewhere in the darkness beyond the fairgrounds, coordinating with a federal task force that's been investigating human trafficking along the California Carnival circuit for the past 2 years. Tommy's discovery, it turns out, is the break they've been waiting for. Tommy checks his watch, 9:47 p.m. The ultimatum expires in 13 minutes. He moves through the shadows toward the tilt-a-whirl, Billy Morrison's baseball card, a talisman, in his pocket. The ride sits silent and dark, its empty cars swaying slightly in the evening breeze. From this angle, Tommy can see the maintenance shed clearly, a windowless concrete building that seems to crouch behind the ride like a predator. The guards are professionals. Tommy can tell by the way they move, the way they scan their surroundings, the subtle bulges under their jackets that suggest serious firepower. These aren't carnival workers pressed into service. These are people who kill for a living. His phone buzzes with another text. 2 minutes. Come to the side door. Hands visible. Tommy takes a deep breath and steps out of the shadows, walking openly toward the shed. The guards tense but don't draw weapons yet. The side door opens as he approaches, revealing a man in his 50s, with silver hair and expensive clothes that seem out of place at a county fair. "Mr. Brennan," the man says smoothly, "thank you for being so cooperative. I'm Robert Morrison. I believe you've heard of my family's business." The name hits Tommy like a physical blow. Morrison Brothers Entertainment. This is one of the owners, the people who've been running this operation for decades. "Where's Frank?" Tommy demands. "Right inside. Please, join us." Morrison's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "We have so much to discuss." Tommy steps through the doorway and immediately understands why this building has no windows. The interior has been converted into something that looks like a cross between a boardroom and a bunker. Concrete walls lined with soundproofing, multiple computer monitors showing various carnival locations across the state, and in the center, a conference table surrounded by men in expensive suits. Frank Kozlov sits tied to a chair at the head of the table, very much alive but clearly terrified. His face bears fresh bruises, and his eyes plead silently with Tommy to run. "Please, sit," Morrison says, gesturing to an empty chair. "We have a proposition for you." Tommy remains standing. "Let Frank go. Whatever this is about, he's paid his dues." "Oh, Frank's debt was paid in full years ago," says another voice. Tommy turns to see a man emerging from the shadows. Older, heavy-set, with a distinctive scar along his jaw. The face from Sarah's photograph. "Impossible," Tommy breathes. "Raymond Morrison died in 1995. Raymond Morrison died in 1995, the man agrees. "I'm Richard Morrison, his younger brother. We found it useful to let people think Raymond was the only Morrison left. Harder to track a conspiracy when half the conspirators don't officially exist." Tommy's mind races, trying to process the implications. How many people are involved in this? How high does it go? "The proposition is simple," Robert Morrison continues. "You have something that belongs to us, the baseball card that Frank so foolishly hid. In exchange for returning it and agreeing to forget everything you've learned today, we're prepared to offer you a very comfortable retirement." He slides a cashier's check across the table. The amount, $2 million, makes Tommy's vision blur. "All you have to do is walk away," Richard Morrison adds. "Go back to your trailer, live your life, and forget Billy Morrison ever existed." Everyone wins. Everyone except Billy, Tommy says. "Billy Morrison died 27 years ago," Robert replies coldly. "Nothing you do now will bring him back. But your cooperation could prevent future unpleasantness." "What happens if I refuse?" The Morrison brothers exchange glances. Robert nods toward one of the monitors, which flickers to life, showing a feed from what appears to be a parking garage. Tommy's blood freezes as he recognizes Sarah's Honda Civic. Sarah and Marcus are clearly visible inside the vehicle, unaware they're being watched. Insurance, Richard explains. Ms. Hendricks has been a persistent thorn in our side. It would be unfortunate if she and Mr. Morrison were to have an accident on their way home tonight. Tommy's hands clench into fists. You bastards. We're businessmen, Robert corrects. We provide a service that certain wealthy individuals require, and we ensure that service remains discreet. The Morrison Brothers Entertainment name opens doors, provides access, creates opportunities. What happens after that? Well, that's between our clients and their consciences. The full horror of what they're describing washes over Tommy. This isn't just about Billy Morrison or even the handful of children Sarah documented. This is an entire network, a hunting ground that moves from town to town, fair to fair, providing predators with access to victims and then covering up the evidence. Frank Kozlov finally speaks, his voice hoarse from screaming. Tommy, don't listen to them. There are dozens of children. Dozens. They have files, videos, auction records. Richard Morrison backhands Frank hard enough to split his lip. Mr. Kozlov forgets his place. You see, Robert continues conversationally, Frank was supposed to die in that house fire in 1989. We staged it very carefully, complete with dental records we'd acquired from a vagrant. But Frank escaped through a basement tunnel and has been living under assumed names ever since. We've tolerated his existence because his periodic payments reminded him of our reach. Until today. Until I found the card. Tommy realizes. Until you found the card. Frank's insurance policy, as he called it. Proof that we'd made certain arrangements with local law enforcement to ensure our operations remained undisturbed. Tommy glances at Frank, who nods almost imperceptibly toward his shirt pocket. Something is hidden there, something the Morrison brothers haven't found yet. So what's it going to be, Mr. Brennan? Robert asks. $2 million and a quiet retirement, or a very messy accident for you and your new friends. Tommy looks at the check, at Frank's bloodied face, at the monitors showing Sarah and Marcus in their car. He thinks about Billy Morrison, 8 years old forever, his baseball card the only evidence that his death meant something to someone. I need to think about it, Tommy says finally. Of course, but don't think too long. Richard checks his watch. You have exactly 60 seconds to decide. After that, our colleagues in the parking garage receive a very specific set of instructions. 50 yards away, hidden in the darkness beyond the fairgrounds, Detective Castellanos speaks quietly into his radio. All units, move in. Suspects are armed and have hostages. This is not a drill. But Tommy doesn't know help is coming. All he knows is that in 55 seconds, Sarah and Marcus will die unless he makes a choice that will either destroy the biggest criminal conspiracy in California history or make him complicit in decades of child murder. The countdown begins, and everything Billy Morrison died for hangs in the balance. 30 seconds, Richard Morrison announces, his finger hovering over his phone. On the monitor, Sarah and Marcus sit obliviously in the parking garage, completely unaware that their deaths are being counted down like a New Year's celebration. Tommy's mind races through impossible calculations. If he agrees to the deal, 2 innocent people live, but dozens of other children remain at risk. If he refuses, Sarah and Marcus die, but maybe, their deaths will somehow expose the truth. 20 seconds. Frank Kozlov catches Tommy's eye and mouths a single word, pocket. Tommy realizes Frank is trying to tell him something about whatever evidence he's hidden. But how can he get close enough to retrieve it without alerting the Morrison brothers? 15 seconds. Our colleagues are very efficient, Mr. Brennan. It will look like a robbery gone wrong. Happens all the time in downtown Riverside. Tommy takes a step toward the table, his hand moving slowly toward the cashier's check. If I take this money, how do I know you'll honor the deal? How do I know you won't kill us all anyway? Because we're businessmen, Robert Morrison replies. Dead martyrs create investigations. Live people with Swiss bank accounts create silence. 10 seconds. Tommy's fingers close around the check. Frank's eyes widen in what looks like betrayal, but Tommy sees something else there, understanding. Trust. 5 seconds. Tommy lunges forward, not for the money but for Frank's shirt pocket. His fingers close around a small object just as the building explodes into chaos. The front door blasts inward in a shower of splinters, and smoke. FBI. Everyone on the ground. Detective Castellanos leads the charge, followed by a tactical team in full body armor. The Morrison brothers' guards spin toward the threat, weapons appearing in their hands with practiced speed. "Get down," Tommy shouts, tackling Frank's chair to the floor as gunfire erupts around them. The soundproofed walls that were meant to contain screams now trap the thunder of automatic weapons. Computer monitors explode in showers of sparks. Robert Morrison dives behind the conference table, while Richard runs for what must be a hidden exit. Tommy finds himself pinned under Frank's overturned chair, Billy Morrison's baseball card in one pocket and Frank's hidden evidence in the other. Above them, bullets whine through the air like deadly hornets. "The files," Frank gasps, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Richard's going for the files. Tommy looks toward the back wall and sees Richard Morrison disappearing through a concealed door. Beyond it lies what appears to be an archive, room filled with filing cabinets, computer servers, and stacks of documents. "Castellanos," Tommy shouts over the gunfire. "The back room. He's destroying evidence." But Castellanos can't hear him over the battle raging in the confined space. One of the Morrison guards has taken position behind an overturned desk, laying down suppressing fire while his partner tries to flank the federal agents. Tommy makes a decision that will either save countless children or get him killed. He rolls away from Frank and sprints toward the hidden door, keeping low as bullets chunk into the concrete around him. The archive room is a treasure trove of horrors. Filing cabinets labeled by year stretch from 1975 to the present. Computer servers hum with the weight of digital evidence. And on a central table, spread out like a grotesque collection, are hundreds of photographs, school pictures, family portraits, and worse. Richard Morrison stands over a shredder, feeding documents into its mechanical mouth as fast as his hands can move. When he sees Tommy, his face twists with rage. "You stupid son of a bitch. Do you have any idea what you've destroyed?" Tommy pulls Frank's hidden evidence from his pocket, a small digital recorder, still running after all these years. Whatever's on here, it was important enough for Frank to risk his life hiding it. That's nothing. A 40-year-old conversation that proves nothing. Richard grabs a manila folder marked Active Operations and tears it open, preparing to feed it to the shredder. But this contains the names of every client, every location, every arranged disappearance for the past 5 years. Senators, judges, Fortune 500 CEOs, people who will burn down half of California to keep their secrets safe. Tommy lunges for the folder, but Richard is bigger and stronger. They crash into the filing cabinets, sending decades of carefully organized evidence scattering across the floor. Richard's hands find Tommy's throat, squeezing with the desperate strength of a man who knows his empire is crumbling. "You don't understand," Richard wheezes as they struggle. "This isn't just about a few missing kids. This is about power, control. The people we serve make the laws, control the courts, decide what gets investigated and what gets buried. Without us, their needs go unmet. Without them, civilization collapses into chaos." Tommy's vision begins to blur as Richard's grip tightens. Around them, photographs of missing children stare down from the walls. Dozens of faces, dozens of lives destroyed to feed the appetites of monsters. With his last conscious thought, Tommy remembers Billy Morrison's 8-year-old smile and finds the strength for one final effort. His knee comes up hard, connecting with Richard's solar plexus and breaking the chokehold. Richard staggers backward, trips over a scattered pile of files, and crashes headfirst into the corner of a metal filing cabinet. The sound his skull makes on impact is wet and final. Tommy gasps for air, his throat feeling like it's been crushed. Around him, the gunfire from the main room is tapering off, replaced by shouted commands and the sound of handcuffs clicking shut. In here, Tommy croaks, his voice barely functional. "The evidence is in here." Castellanos appears in the doorway, his tactical vest smoking from a near miss. He takes in the scene: Richard Morrison's motionless body, the scattered files, the walls covered with photographs of missing children, and his face goes pale. "Jesus Christ," he breathes. "How many kids are we talking about?" Tommy struggles to his feet, clutching Frank's digital recorder. "I don't know, but this might tell us." He presses play. Frank Kozlov's voice, younger but unmistakable, crackles from the tiny speaker. Testing, testing. This is Frank Kozlov, and it's August 16th, 1983. I'm recording this because I think they're going to kill me for what I saw yesterday. But people need to know the truth about what happened to Billy Morrison and all the others. The recording continues, Frank's terrified voice describing the trailer full of photographs, the poker game where children's lives were bid on like playing cards, and the moment when Billy Morrison was selected for special attention by a man Frank identifies as Judge Warren Blackwood, a name that makes Castellanos swear loudly. Blackwood was the presiding judge over most of the Morrison brothers' cases, Castellanos explains. Every time local authorities tried to investigate missing children connected to their carnivals, cases mysteriously got dismissed on technicalities or evidence disappeared from lockup. The recording plays on, revealing a network of corruption that reaches from small-town sheriffs to federal judges, all of them either clients of the Morrison brothers' services or complicit in covering up their crimes. But the most chilling moment comes at the end, when Frank describes what he saw through the trailer window. Billy Morrison, very much alive, being loaded into a refrigerated truck with license plates that Frank managed to photograph. They didn't kill him immediately. Tommy realizes, his voice hollow with horror. They were transporting him somewhere else. Somewhere specific. The ranch, says a weak voice from the doorway. Frank Kozlov leans against the frame, freed from his restraints, but barely able to stand. There's a ranch in the desert outside Barstow. That's where they took the special ones. The ones who were too young or too pretty for the quick turnaround. Castellanos is already on his radio, calling for additional units and search helicopters. But Tommy knows, with the sick certainty that comes from seeing too much evil in one day, that they're 27 years too late to save Billy Morrison. The question now is how many other children might still be alive out there, hidden in places that don't officially exist, waiting for rescue that may never come to eye in his pocket. Billy Morrison's baseball card feels heavier than ever. No longer just evidence of a crime, but a promise that needs to be kept to an 8-year-old boy who trusted the wrong adults at a county fair 27 years ago. Outside, sirens wail across Riverside County as the machinery of justice finally begins to turn. But for Tommy, Sarah, Marcus, and Frank, the real work is just beginning, because finding the truth was only the first step. Now they have to survive long enough to make sure it sees the light of day. The Riverside Police Department's conference room buzzes with the controlled chaos of a major investigation. Federal agents huddle around laptops while local detectives field calls from jurisdictions across 3 states. Tommy sits at the corner table, his throat still raw from Richard Morrison's chokehold, watching the conspiracy unravel in real time. "We've got movement," announces Agent Rebecca Torres, the FBI's lead investigator on human trafficking cases. She's been coordinating the response since Castellanos' call came in 6 hours ago. Barstow PD reports multiple vehicles leaving the desert area around 3 a.m. By the time our choppers reached the coordinates Frank provided, the ranch was abandoned. Sarah looks up from her laptop, where she's been cross-referencing the Morrison brothers' client list with missing persons reports. They had a head start. Someone warned them. Someone with access to federal communications. Torres agrees grimly. This network has roots deeper than we imagined. Marcus Morrison hasn't spoken since arriving at the station. He sits clutching a folder of photographs they recovered from the archive, images of children who could be his brother, taken at various locations over the past 27 years. Most of the faces are too damaged by time and poor lighting to identify with certainty, but Marcus keeps studying them with the desperate hope of someone who's never stopped looking. Frank Kozlov occupies a hospital bed they've wheeled into the conference room. Despite his injuries, he refused to stay at Riverside Community Hospital. Too many eyes, too many ways for the network to reach him. The ranch was just one location, he says, his voice hoarse but determined. There are others. Safe houses, private estates, even a compound in Mexico that caters to international clients. Tommy pulls out his phone as it buzzes with yet another call from reporters who somehow got his number. The story broke 3 hours ago when a federal prosecutor in Sacramento held an emergency press conference announcing the arrests of Robert Morrison and 6 associates. The media is calling it the biggest child trafficking bust in California history, but Tommy knows they're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. 12 locations across 4 states. Agent Torres continues, reading from a secure tablet. Teams are moving on all of them simultaneously. So far, we've recovered 43 children, ages 6 to 16. The number hangs in the air like a physical weight. 43 children who might never have been found if Tommy hadn't stumbled across Billy Morrison's baseball card this morning. Any sign of Billy? Marcus asks quietly. Torres shakes her head. I'm sorry. Most of the children we've recovered have been missing for less than 2 years. The older cases. She doesn't finish the sentence, but everyone understands. Tommy's phone buzzes again, this time with a text from an unknown number. You should have taken the money. Now everyone you love dies. He shows the message to Agent Torres, who immediately signals to a technician monitoring their communications. They're still out there, she confirms. The Morrison brothers were middle management. The real power players are just getting started. What do you mean? Sarah asks. Torres pulls up a new screen showing financial records recovered from the archive. Morrison Brothers Entertainment grossed approximately $8 million annually. But according to these ledgers, they were paying out nearly $15 million in protection money, legal fees, and hush funds. Someone else was bankrolling this operation. The conference room door opens and Detective Castellanos enters, his face grim. We've got a problem. Judge Warren Blackwood, the one Frank identified in the recording, was found dead in his chambers 30 minutes ago. Apparent suicide, but the note he left behind claims the entire investigation is a hoax designed to frame innocent people. Convenient. Tommy mutters. It gets worse. Castellanos continues. Senator Patricia Hawkins just held a press conference denouncing the raids as a politically motivated witch hunt. She's calling for a Senate investigation into FBI overreach. Frank struggles to sit up in his hospital bed. Hawkins was one of their biggest clients. She used to request specific types of children for her private parties. Sarah's laptop chimes with an incoming message. Her face goes pale as she reads it. Guys, we need to see this. Someone just sent me surveillance footage from Marcus's house this morning. She turns the screen so everyone can see. The video shows the black SUV that had been following them, but this time the camera angle reveals the license plate clearly. More importantly, it shows the driver getting out of the vehicle, a man in his 40s wearing a federal marshal's badge. That's Deputy Marshal Kenneth Reeves, Torres says, her voice tight with anger. He's supposed to be coordinating witness protection for the children we recovered. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. If Reeves is compromised, then every safe house, every witness, every piece of evidence they've secured could be at risk. Tommy's phone rings. This time, he recognizes the number. It's his ex-wife Linda, calling from Phoenix. Don't answer it, Torres warns, but Tommy is already pressing the accept button. Linda? What's wrong? Tommy, there are men outside my house. They say they're federal agents, but something feels wrong. They're asking about you, about some investigation. They want to bring me in for questioning. Tommy's blood turns to ice. Linda, listen to me very carefully. Do not go with them. Lock your doors, call 911, and tell them. The line goes dead. Agent Torres is already on her radio, dispatching teams to Phoenix, but Tommy knows they're too late. The network's response is swift, coordinated, and ruthless. They're not just covering their tracks, they're eliminating anyone who might testify against them. We need to move the children, Torres announces. All of them, to locations that Reeves doesn't know about. Where? Castellanos asks. If they've got people inside the Marshal Service, they probably have people in every other agency too. The question hangs unanswered as phones around the room begin ringing simultaneously. Tommy watches Agent Torres take a call, her expression growing more troubled with each passing second. That was the team at the Bakersfield safe house, she says when she hangs up. 3 children are missing. The agents guarding them were found unconscious, no sign of forced entry. Sarah closes her laptop with shaking hands. They're taking back the evidence. The children, the documents, everything that could expose them. Frank's monitor starts beeping rapidly as his heart rate spikes. There's something else, he gasps. Something I didn't tell you about the ranch. They weren't just holding children. They were making films. Professional quality, with multiple cameras, lighting equipment. They were documenting everything. For blackmail? Marcus asks. For sale, Frank replies. to clients who couldn't physically attend but wanted souvenirs. The films were distributed through a network of private servers, encrypted and virtually untraceable. Tommy feels the weight of Billy Morrison's baseball card in his pocket. But now it feels less like evidence and more like a target painted on his back. Around him, the investigation that seemed so promising 6 hours ago is collapsing in real time. "How many people are we dealing with?" he asks. Agent Torres stares at the bank records on her screen, her face pale. "Based on these financial transfers, I'd estimate at least 200 individuals with direct knowledge of the operation. Judges, politicians, business leaders, law enforcement officials. People with the power to make evidence disappear and witnesses die in convenient accidents." The conference room falls silent except for the steady beep of Frank's heart monitor and the distant sound of sirens. Ambulances, fire trucks, or police cars racing to deal with emergencies that may or may not be connected to their investigation. Tommy realizes that finding Billy Morrison's baseball card hasn't solved anything. It's simply marked them all for death by a network of predators who've spent decades perfecting the art of making problems disappear. And somewhere in the darkness beyond Riverside County, 43 rescued children are being hunted by the very people who swore to protect them. The abandoned warehouse in East Los Angeles doesn't appear on any official maps. Built during World War II to manufacture aircraft parts, it's been forgotten by city planners and overlooked by developers for 70 years. Now it serves as an unlikely sanctuary for 40 children who shouldn't exist according to the official records that are being systematically destroyed. Tommy helps unload sleeping bags from Sarah's Honda, while Agent Torres coordinates with a network of people she calls the Clean Ones, federal agents, social workers, and prosecutors who've been quietly building cases against the trafficking network for years, waiting for the moment when they'd have enough evidence to move. "How long have you known?" Tommy asks Torres as they arrange makeshift beds in what used to be the factory's main assembly area. 3 years, she replies. Ever since a 12-year-old girl escaped from a compound in Nevada and found her way to a highway patrol officer who wasn't on the payroll. But every time we got close, evidence disappeared or witnesses died in accidents. The children huddle together in small groups, their eyes holding the hollow stare of trauma survivors. Some are as young as 6. Others appear to be teenagers, but they all share the same watchful wariness of people who've learned that adults can't be trusted. Marcus kneels beside a boy who looks about 8, the same age Billy would have been when he disappeared. "What's your name?" he asks gently. "They called me 7, the boy whispers. "I don't remember my real name." Sarah documents each child's story on her laptop, creating a record that will hopefully survive even if they don't. The tales are variations on the same nightmare. Children taken from county fairs, shopping malls, school playgrounds, their disappearances explained away as runaways or custody disputes. Some have been missing for months, others for years. Frank Kozlov lies on a gurney near the warehouse's loading dock, hooked up to a portable heart monitor that one of Torres' allies borrowed from a hospital. His condition is deteriorating, but he refuses to seek proper medical treatment until the network is exposed. "There's something else," Frank tells Tommy when he approaches the gurney. "Something I've been afraid to mention because it sounds like the ravings of a dying man." At this point, "Nothing sounds too crazy," Tommy replies. "The films they made, they weren't just for sale. They were insurance policies. Blackmail material against their own clients." Frank's voice drops to barely above a whisper. "They have footage of judges, senators, Fortune 500 CEOs. People who thought they were untouchable." Tommy feels a spark of hope for the first time in hours. Where are the films? The main server farm is in a bunker beneath the Morrison Brothers corporate headquarters in Anaheim. 20 feet underground, climate-controlled, with enough backup power to run for weeks. Richard Morrison showed it to me once, said it was their nuclear option if anyone ever tried to shut them down. Agent Torres overhears and approaches the gurney. "We raided the Anaheim office 6 hours ago. Found nothing but empty file cabinets and wiped hard drives. The bunker isn't connected to the main building," Frank explains. "Separate entrance, separate utilities, designed to look like an abandoned subway tunnel from the outside. The access point is 3 blocks away, behind a closed auto repair shop." Torres is already on her encrypted radio, coordinating with a team in Orange County. But Tommy knows they're running out of time. Every minute they spend in the warehouse increases the chance that Deputy Marshal Reeves or one of his allies will track them down. We need to split up, Tommy says. Some of us go after the server farm, others stay with the children. I'm going. With you, Marcus announces. If those servers contain evidence about what happened to Billy, Sarah looks up from her laptop. I'm staying here. These kids need someone to document their stories, and I'm not leaving them alone again. The decision is made quickly. Torres will take a small team to Anaheim while Tommy, Marcus, and two clean agents remain at the warehouse. Frank will stay behind, his condition too unstable for transport. But as Torres prepares to leave, her radio crackles with an urgent message. Control to Alpha Team. Be advised we have multiple law enforcement vehicles converging on your location. Unknown if friendly or hostile. Through the warehouse's grimy windows, Tommy sees the red and blue lights reflecting off nearby buildings. Cars are approaching from multiple directions, moving with the coordinated precision of a planned operation. How did they find us? Sarah whispers. The answer comes from an unexpected source. One of the teenage girls, maybe 14, with prematurely gray hair and scars on her arms, stands up from her sleeping bag and speaks in a voice devoid of emotion. I told them, she says simply. They have my little sister. They said if I didn't call them when we got somewhere safe, they'd send me a video of her dying. The warehouse erupts into controlled chaos as Torres' team prepares defensive positions while simultaneously trying to evacuate 40 traumatized children through a building with limited exits. There's a storm drain that connects to the LA River system, one of the clean agents reports. Access through the basement, but it's going to be tight quarters. Outside, spotlights begin sweeping the warehouse walls. A voice echoes through a bullhorn. This is Deputy Marshal Kenneth Reeves. We have a federal warrant to search these premises. Open the doors and surrender the individuals harboring stolen federal evidence. Tommy looks at the children, 7, and the others, and realizes they're not just witnesses to a conspiracy. They're living proof that some adults will sacrifice anything to protect their own power and privilege. How long will it take to get everyone through the storm drain? He asks. 20 minutes, maybe 30, the agent replies. Too long if they decide to rush the building. Marcus pulls Tommy aside. There's another option. We can't outrun them with 40 kids, but we can buy time. What are you suggesting? You and I create a distraction. Led them away from the warehouse, while Torres gets the children to safety. Marcus's eyes hold the same determination Tommy saw when he talked about his missing brother. Billy's been gone for 27 years. These kids still have a chance. Tommy looks at Billy Morrison's baseball card one final time, then hands it to Sarah. Make sure this gets to the right people. Let them know Billy Morrison mattered. Outside, the spotlights are getting brighter and the voices more insistent. Deputy Marshal Reeves isn't going to wait much longer before ordering his teams to storm the building. Tommy and Marcus head for the warehouse's main entrance while Torres begins, shepherding children toward the basement. As they reach the loading dock, Tommy can see dozens of vehicles surrounding the building, federal agents, local police, even what appear to be private security contractors. When I open this door, Marcus says, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment I found that baseball card. Tommy replies. Marcus nods and throws open the loading dock door. Spotlights immediately focus on them, temporarily blinding them both. We're unarmed. Marcus shouts. We want to negotiate. Step forward slowly. Reeves' voice booms through the darkness, hands visible at all times. As they walk into the glare of the spotlights, Tommy hears a sound that gives him hope, the distant splash of children entering the storm drain system beneath the warehouse. Sarah, Torres, and the clean agents are getting the kids to safety, but he also hears something else, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors approaching from the south. Not police helicopters or news crews, but military-style aircraft with the kind of equipment that can see through walls and track heat signatures. The network isn't just trying to recapture escaped evidence. They're preparing to erase everyone. Who's ever seen it? Tommy and Marcus reach the edge of the spotlight circle, surrounded by dozens of armed agents whose loyalties are unknown. Behind them, the warehouse grows quiet as the last of the children disappear into the underground tunnels. Gentlemen, Deputy Marshal Reeves says as he emerges from the shadows, you've caused us considerable inconvenience. but I'm prepared to offer you the same deal the Morrison brothers offered. Forget what you've seen and live comfortably for the rest of your lives. Tommy looks at Marcus, then back at Reeves. And if we refuse? Reeves gestures toward the approaching helicopters. Then you join the list of people who died heroically trying to save children from a warehouse fire. Tragic accident, really. These old buildings are such fire hazards. The choice is simple, betrayal or death. But Tommy realizes there's a third option, one that might give Sarah and the children enough time to reach safety and get their stories to the outside world. The game isn't over yet. It's just entering its final, most dangerous phase that Tommy's hand finds the emergency flare in his jacket pocket, something he'd grabbed from Sarah's car without thinking. You know what your problem is, Reeves, he says, backing toward the warehouse. You think everyone's as corrupt as you are. What are you talking about? Reeves demands, but Tommy sees uncertainty flicker in his eyes. Agent Torres didn't just coordinate with local teams tonight. She coordinated with the media. Tommy pulls the pin from the flare. Live news crews are already positioned at the Anaheim bunker. Your server farm is being broadcast on every major network right now. It's a bluff, but Reeves doesn't know that. Tommy sees several of the supposed federal agents exchanging worried glances. You're lying, Reeves says, but he's already reaching for his radio. Tommy ignites the flare and hurls it toward the nearest vehicle. The red phosphorus explodes in a shower of sparks, temporarily blinding the spotlights and creating enough chaos for Marcus to sprint toward the warehouse's side exit. Go, Tommy shouts, diving behind a concrete barrier as gunfire erupts around him. But Marcus doesn't run. Instead, he pulls out his phone and holds it high above his head. This is Marcus Morrison, brother of Billy Morrison who disappeared in 1983. Everything we've discovered tonight is being live-streamed to my followers. Tommy realizes Marcus has been recording everything on social media. The standoff, the confessions, Reeves' threats, all of it being broadcast to thousands of viewers in real time. Reeves screams orders into his radio, but it's too late. The story is already spreading across social platforms faster than any network can contain it. Hashtag Billy Morrison starts trending within minutes that in the distance. Tommy hears the sound he's been hoping for. Real sirens. Not the networks compromised. Agents, but news crews, legitimate federal authorities, and local police responding to the viral video. The children are safe. Sarah's voice crackles through Tommy's earpiece. Torres got them to a secure location. The server farm has been secured by clean agents. Reeves realizes his position is crumbling. The helicopters retreat as news choppers appear on the horizon. Several of his supposed federal agents quietly slip away into the darkness. This isn't over, Reeves snarls, but Tommy can see the defeat in his eyes. Yes, it is, Marcus replies, still recording. The whole world is watching. Now, 3 hours later, Tommy sits in a real federal facility watching the greatest criminal conspiracy in California history collapse on live television. Judge after judge, senator after senator, CEO after CEO, arrested in coordinated raids across the country. The server farm yielded terabytes of evidence, financial records, client lists, and hundreds of hours of video that will put monsters away for life. More importantly, it contained location data for 6 more compounds, leading to the rescue of 93 additional children. Frank Kozlov finally received proper medical treatment and lived to testify before Congress. Sarah's documentation of the children's stories became the foundation for the largest human trafficking prosecution in U.S. history. Marcus found closure, if not peace. Billy's remains were never recovered, but the man who killed him, identified in Frank's recording as Robert Morrison's business partner, died in federal custody before trial. Deputy Marshal Kenneth Reeves and 47 other government officials were arrested in what media dubbed Operation Clean Sweep. But perhaps most importantly, the rescued children began the long process of healing. The boy called Seven remembered his real name, David Chin Jr., missing from Bakersfield for 3 years. His parents had never stopped looking. Tommy kept Billy Morrison's baseball card, now evidence in a closed case. But more than that, it became a reminder that sometimes the smallest discoveries can topple the largest conspiracies. The network that had operated with impunity for 4 decades was finally broken, brought down by a mechanic who found a piece of cardboard in the right place at the right time. Justice, it turned out, sometimes arrives 27 years late, but it still arrives 0.1 year later. Tommy Brennan stands at the Riverside County Fairgrounds on a crisp October morning. The carnival is setting up for another season, but everything has changed. Morrison Brothers Entertainment is gone, replaced by family-owned operations with transparent backgrounds and rigorous safety protocols. The Tilt-A-Whirl where he found Billy Morrison's baseball card has been dismantled, sold for scrap. In its place stands a memorial garden with 47 small trees, one for each confirmed victim of the network. A bronze plaque reads, "In memory of the children who were lost, and in honor of those who were found." Tommy no longer works the carnival circuit. The $2 million reward from the federal government, payment for exposing the conspiracy, allowed him to start a nonprofit organization dedicated to finding missing children. Sarah runs the research division, while Marcus coordinates. With families of victims, they've recovered 18 more children in the past year, following leads from the server farm data. Each rescue feels like keeping a promise to an 8-year-old boy who loved baseball and believed in underdogs. Frank Kozlov lives in a secure facility under federal protection, his health slowly improving. He spends his days working with investigators, helping them understand the full scope of the network's operations. "I can't give Billy back his life," he told Tommy recently, "but I can make sure his death meant something." Senator Patricia Hawkins received a life sentence. Judge Warren Blackwood's estate was liquidated to fund victim compensation. Deputy Marshal Kenneth Reeves died in federal prison, officially a heart attack, though Tommy suspects the network's reach extended even into protective custody. The children continue to heal. David Chin Jr., the boy called Seven, started 3rd grade at a new school and joined a Little League team. His psychiatrist says he still has nightmares, but he's learning to be a child again. That, Tommy knows, is the real victory. Tommy reaches into his jacket and pulls out Billy Morrison's baseball card, now sealed in a protective case. The FBI returned it after the trials concluded, calling it evidence with sentimental value. But it's more than sentiment. It's proof that truth can survive decades of lies if someone cares enough to look for it. The morning sun catches the card's surface, and for a moment Tommy can almost see Billy Morrison's 8-year-old smile looking back at him. The boy who loved underdogs and believed in happy endings. The boy who waited 27 years for someone to find his message in a bottle. Tommy places the card back in his pocket and walks toward his car. There's another case. Waiting, a 6-year-old girl missing from a shopping mall in Phoenix. Another family hoping for answers. Another chance to keep Billy's promise alive. Behind him, the memorial garden catches the morning light. 47 trees standing sentinel over a fairground that will never again be a hunting ground. The children who were lost have found their voices at last, and their stories will echo through the justice system for generations to come. Some secrets, Tommy has learned, are too big to stay buried forever. Sometimes they just need the right person to stumble across them at exactly the right moment. Sometimes they need someone who believes that every child, no matter how long they've been missing, deserves to be found.